No one's shocked anymore when someone just goes out and guns down a bunch of people for no real reason. We've gotten to the point where that's just like, oh, again? Huh. Weird. Yeah, those do happen a lot, don't they? The suspect this time around, although his name has not been confirmed by the police, is Chris Harper Mercer. He was shot dead at the scene. 6 weapons were recovered at the scene, and 7 were recovered from his residence. All of them were purchased legally from a federal arms dealer. Now, I am a supporter of gun control, and the second I said that, a bunch of mouse cursors just moved to the thumbs down icon down there. And, yeah, fuck you, gun control. Fuck you. You know, gun stores have to do background checks, but they're really not very thorough at all. Less than 1% of people are rejected, so basically no one is rejected from these things. You have to basically come in, you know, with a bloody axe over your shoulder and a deranged look in your eyes. Wah! Need a gun so I can kill better! And then, you know, maybe that guy gets refused, but pretty much no one else does. And that's just gun stores. I could walk into a gun show today and just walk out with a gun. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I have no experience with a fucking firearm. I can just, mosey on in. Here we go. Got my gun. Walk on out. I mean, some states it's a little stricter, but this one, not really. And you can just go buy a gun from a private citizen, a friend, family member, total stranger, doesn't matter. You can go and buy a gun from them. They don't have to do a background check. They don't have to do anything. All they have to do is give you the gun and you give them the money. Imagine if it was that easy to get a car. Like, all I had to do to get a car was walk into the dealership and, you know, slap some money on the counter and I could just drive away. I don't need to prove I have a license. I don't need to prove I have insurance. I don't need to prove I'm not a psychopath that's going to run 50,000 people down in my fucking car. That'd be quite a feat, actually. I don't have to prove any of that. I can just buy the car, drive away. Do you think that if that were the law of the land, that it was perfectly permissible for me to do that? Do you think traffic accidents would go up or down? And if your answer's down, I'd really love to hear your reasoning. You know, we've got the TSA groping us at the airports, making us take our shoes off, making us take our belts off, making us go through full body scanners, subjecting us to radiation, while the girl at the monitor giggles at my small penis. Such a big guy, but such a little tiny dick. Gotta go through all that because terrorism. And we found out that the NSA is spying on our every phone call, reading our every email, watching everything we do every second of every day. Why? Terrorism. And we got the Patriot Act fucking us in the ass, saying, oh, civil liberties, huh? Not anymore, bitch. Yeah, take it, American people, take it. I'm protecting you from terrorism. Vox compiled a chart comparing deaths from gun homicides versus deaths from terrorism in America. Look at this chart. Gun murder deaths tower over terrorism-related deaths every year, including 2001. So we will accept absolute fascism to protect us from the almost non-existent threat of terrorism. And yet, we won't be even mildly inconvenienced in order to maybe get the gun deaths down a little fucking bit. I'm tired of gun advocates continuously spewing things at me like criminals will always be able to get guns anyway. You know, by that logic, we might as well just not even have any laws. Just admit that you're a fucking anarchist. Of course, criminals are going to break the law. That's why they're fucking criminals. Yeah, I understand that. But we still have laws. You know why we have the laws? So we can punish the fucking criminals. So what sense does it make? Yeah, criminals will break the law. The war on guns will fail like the war on drugs. That's another one I've heard several times. And yeah, I do think the war on drugs is a complete and abject failure, and I think that anyone of the opposite opinion must be a fucking retard, honestly. But that being said, I think we should take the same approach to guns and drugs. They're both dangerous. They're just like cars, which if you want to get a car, you have to go through a driver safety course, and you have to prove that you know what all the signs mean, and you have to take a driving test, and you have to get your license, and you have to get insurance. You have to prove that you're competent. But with guns, it's just like, yep, take your guns. And then with drugs, it's like, if you have drugs, you're going to jail. Well, I think that all of these things should be treated the same way. Regulate them. Fucking regulate them. I don't want guns banned. The Second Amendment pretty much prohibits that from happening. But we can regulate them. We can fucking regulate them. But then that brings us to the most common argument that gun advocates make. Gun control won't lower the murder rate. Well, I think you should read up a little bit about Australia, because gun control actually did lower their murder rate. But you're right. It probably won't make that big of a dent to just enact gun control. There are other things that also need to be done. Mental health care. We have to improve the mental health care system in this country. Ronald Reagan dismantled it in the 80s. We need to bring it back, and we need to bring it back better than it was before. And we need to start focusing on figuring out what are the factors that lead people to commit these mass shootings like Chris Harper Mercer. But let's face it, most gun violence is not committed by the mass shooters. It's committed by gangs and drug dealers and petty criminals. And that's why the war on drugs should be ended. That's why the war on drugs should be ended, because if you take away the revenue of the gangs, you're going to cut violence dramatically. Non-violent criminals should not be sent to prison. You know why? Because first of all, it's an unnecessary expense. They're not, if they're non-violent, they're not really a threat to society. If a non-violent criminal is captured, all sending them to prison does is give them, you're basically sending them to crime college. Here, go here and learn from the best. You might turn a non-violent criminal into a violent criminal by doing that shit. They should be given community service, they should be given fines, or something like that. They should not be going to prison with a bunch of hardened criminals and learning how to commit a slew of other crimes. The prison system in general should be reformed. The justice system in general should be reformed. And I think that if you are familiar with my videos, you can speculate as to what those reforms might be, but maybe I'll get into it in a future video. I think if we enacted measures like that, we would actually stand a chance of taking that gun homicide rate down, taking the overall homicide rate down. That's my plan. Not just gun control. Gun control is one part. That is but a single prong on the fork of justice that will eat away the degradation of society. Oh yeah! Now I have to get into another subject matter. I know that this makes no sense since most of this video is about gun control, but there is something else I'd like to talk about the UCC shooter that I don't want to make another video, so I'm just going to add it as an addendum to this video. There's a story going around. It's been published in several newspapers, and it's been stated by several eyewitnesses of the crime that Chris Harper Mercer targeted Christians when he went to his classroom. He basically said, all the Christians stand up, and systematically, if someone said they were a Christian, he shot them in the head. If they said they were not a Christian or they didn't answer him at all, he shot them in the leg. I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but I have a lot of trouble buying this narrative. I just don't understand why the classroom would continue to cooperate with him for so long as this is happening, when it becomes evident that, yes, he's shooting everyone who's a Christian, and in fact, he's shooting everyone, at least in the leg. I mean, like, why was there no effort to escape or to attack? I mean, I don't know what the layout of the room was. I don't know how the situation was orchestrated. I wasn't there to see it. But that just seems very strange. But if that narrative is true, and I guess that, other than my incredulity, I don't have any evidence that it isn't, then, and this might sound fucked up at first, but I think Christianity is kind of culpable in this. First, in the sense that people were willing to trade this faith in a God that does not even exist for their very lives. Once you realize he's shooting Christians, say you're not a Christian. But no, apparently they thought, well, maybe if I deny Christ, I'm going to go to hell, so I guess I'd better say I'm a Christian. That was the chime of the angels, in case you guys heard that. That was God chastising me. Wasn't Scotty's cell phone at all. Another thing, Chris Harper Mercer said that he would be welcomed into hell and embraced by the devil. Now, I don't know if he was speaking allegorically or figuratively there, or if he literally believes that Satan is going to be like, yeah, buddy, good job. You get one of the best seats in hell. You're right across the street from Hitler's mansion. But if he does believe in a literal devil, who gave him that impression? Who gave him the impression that such a being exists? Who gave him the impression that such a being might be willing to reward him for doing evil deeds? Christianity did. So I believe Christianity is partly culpable in this. And I don't really feel too bad making that accusation, since I've already seen a number of Christian publications spinning it the other way, that atheism must be responsible since Christians were targeted. Well, I see Christianity as actually more culpable, because apparently a number of Christians had the ability to save their own lives, but chose not to, because they weren't willing to lie to a killer to save themselves. And apparently the killer himself might have believed in a literal devil that was going to reward him for his murder spree. So yeah, I think you guys are to blame. I'm the Amazing Atheist. Peace the fuck out.